There's a kind of fear that doesn't start with a scream. It starts with a thought, a single, quiet realization that everything you know, everything you've ever been, is sitting on a rock, floating in absolute darkness. And the more you think about it, the worse it gets. The size of it all, the silence, the fact that no matter how far we look, we're still nowhere. It's not fear of space travel, not fear of aliens. It's fear of the truth, that we are small, and space doesn't even notice. This is astrophobia, the fear of outer space, and the overwhelming sense that we don't belong in it. In this video, we'll explore where that fear comes from, what it does to us, and why sometimes the scariest thing isn't what's in the universe, it's the universe itself. Before we go deeper, let's define what we're actually talking about. Astrophobia is the fear of outer space, not just rockets or aliens, but space itself. The scale, the silence, the isolation, the sheer nothingness. It's not a common fear, but for the people who feel it, it's overwhelming. This chapter looks at what astrophobia is, where it comes from, and why it hits so hard for some people.
Earth feels solid. You stand on the ground and it doesn't move. The sky above you looks the same each day. There's a rhythm to everything. Sunrises, seasons, tides. It gives us the feeling that we're on something permanent. But we're not. Earth is a sphere just over 12,000 kilometers wide, covered in a paper-thin layer of atmosphere, surrounded by vacuum. And it's moving. At this very moment, we're spinning at over 1,600 kilometers per hour, orbiting the sun at nearly 110,000, and the sun itself is hurtling through the galaxy at 828,000 kilometers per hour. Everything we call home is flying through space, on a rock with no seatbelts. But because we're too small to feel the motion, it doesn't feel real, until you stop and really think about it. That sense of stability is just a trick of perspective. There's a photograph, taken by Voyager 1 as it drifted out past Neptune. It turned around one last time and looked back. And in that photo, almost invisible, is a tiny speck of light. That speck is us, Earth. Every person you've ever known, every language, every religion, every heartbreak, every miracle. All of it, reduced to less than a pixel. That image has been called beautiful, even hopeful. But really look at it, and something else sets in. This creeping sense that we're fragile, that we're surrounded by something incomprehensibly vast and completely indifferent. The longer you stare at that tiny dot, the more it starts to feel like we don't belong. Not in a cosmic sense, but emotionally. Like we've stumbled into a place that wasn't built for us, and are only just realizing it. It makes you feel hollow. Like the whole idea of safety, meaning, purpose, is something we invented to distract ourselves. Because if we didn't, we'd have to face the truth. That everything we are, our history, our struggles, our lives, exists on a flicker of light, suspended in darkness with no edge and no center. No signs, no meaning, just endless space. And the unbearable thought that this is all there is, and no one's looking.
There's something about it that's hard to even process. Not just how far it stretches, but how total it is. Space isn't out there, like a distant landscape. It's around us, above, below, behind every wall, behind the sky. You're not standing on the world looking up at it, you're floating inside it. That's the part that really breaks your brain. That isn't just far, it's everywhere. You're surrounded by something endless and silent and cold, and you can't leave. You're inside the abyss. And for someone with astrophobia, trying to make sense of that, trying to sit with that, is like trying to breathe underwater. Every part of you wants to deny it, because once you understand how alone we really are, you can't ununderstand it. Light from the sun takes over 4 hours just to reach the edge of our own solar system. The nearest star is more than 4 light years away. If you left today on the fastest spacecraft we've ever built, you'd get there in about 75,000 years. And between here and there, nothing. No lights, no warmth, no ground. Just empty space so vast it makes your chest tighten if you think about it too long. Not quiet like a forest at night, quiet like a locked room no one remembers exists. That's what space really is. Silence, darkness, and the overwhelming realization that we are terrifyingly alone. For someone with astrophobia, it's not just fear of what's out there, it's fear of what isn't.
Earth feels safe. Familiar skies, predictable seasons, life everywhere you look. But zoom out, and it all starts to feel like an illusion. Because everything we know, every breath we take, exists within a shockingly thin layer of atmosphere. Just 8 kilometers up, and you're in what's called the death zone. Not outer space, just the top of Earth. And from there, it gets real quiet, real fast. Our planet is orbiting the sun at 107,000 kilometers per hour, tilted on its axis, spinning every 24 hours, shielded from solar radiation by a magnetic field, and just far enough from the sun to not be cooked or frozen. Change any of those things, and everything falls apart. We're living on a balancing act so fine, it's hard to believe it's even real. And once you start noticing how fragile it all is, you can't stop. It feels like being on a plane and suddenly realizing just how thin the metal is between you and open air. It doesn't mean anything will go wrong, but it makes you realize how little is holding it all together. And for someone with astrophobia, that realization doesn't go away. You carry it with you. The quiet knowledge that this entire home, every tree, every memory, every person, is just sitting on a rock, spinning in space, surrounded by nothing.
Astrophobia isn't always triggered by what might be in space. Sometimes it's just space itself. The size, the emptiness, the distances that don't make sense. Our brains are wired for streets and cities, not galaxies and light years. So when we try to understand the true scale of the universe, something breaks. And in that disconnect, fear takes root. This chapter explores that feeling. The panic that comes not from monsters or aliens, but from trying to grasp something so vast, so unreachable, that it makes you feel like nothing at all. Most people look at the planets with a kind of awe. Saturn's rings, Jupiter's swirling storms, Mars glowing red in the sky. They're beautiful, but they're not comforting. They're massive, cold, violent. Jupiter is so big it could fit every other planet inside it, and still have room to spare. Its great red spot is a storm the size of Earth that's been raging for centuries. And below those clouds, crushing pressure, radiation, metallic hydrogen oceans. That's not a wonder of the solar system, that's a death trap. Every one of these planets looks peaceful from a distance, but they are anything but. They're dead worlds, spinning in silence, not places you could visit, not places you'd want to visit. They don't care if you're afraid. They don't care if you're even alive. And for someone with astrophobia, that's what makes them so terrifying. They're out there, watching from the dark, and they'll be here long after we're gone. If Jupiter is terrifying because of its size, then Venus and Neptune are terrifying because of how easy it is to imagine being there. Not that you'd survive, but the idea of standing on the surface, even just imagining it, triggers something deep. Venus is hell. Its sky is filled with clouds of sulfuric acid. Its surface hot enough to melt lead. The pressure would crush you like a soda can before you could even scream. And the scariest part? Venus is almost Earth's twin in size and mass. A reminder of just how thin the line is between a planet that supports life and one that tries to kill it. Neptune's horror is different. It's distant, cold, quiet, but it's also a storm world with winds faster than the speed of sound, no solid surface, just gas, ice, and pressure so intense it turns hydrogen into metal. It's a planet you'd fall through. No landing, no escape, just falling, deeper and deeper, until there's nothing left of you. And both of these worlds, they're real, out there, right now, and they'll never even know we existed. That's what makes them scary. Not because they're evil, but because they're completely indifferent. You don't need aliens, or monsters. If just one planet drifted off course, even slightly, Earth would be done. And it's not just theory. Rogue planets, entire worlds not bound to any star, are out there, drifting, silent, massive. If one entered our solar system, even a near miss could be enough to throw everything out of balance. Gravitational forces would shred our atmosphere. Crust torn open, oceans pulled into the sky, no evacuation, no second chances, just a timeline that ends. And the most terrifying part? There's nothing behind it. No anger, no intent, just a force too big to stop, following physics, not purpose. That's what astrophobia feeds on. The idea that our entire existence is so fragile, it could be wiped out by something that doesn't even notice. Not because we were in the way, but because it followed its path, and we just happened to be on it. We grow up learning the names of the planets, like they're part of some familiar system. But there's nothing familiar about them. They're alien worlds, hostile, lifeless, and completely indifferent to whether we exist or not. They're reminders that Earth is a statistical fluke. Look around. Boiling skies, frozen storms, crushing pressures, toxic clouds. Everywhere we look, the message is the same. You don't belong here. We call it the Goldilocks zone, like it's some sweet story. But it's not cute. It's terrifying. Because the more we explore, the more we realize just how rare a place like Earth might be. If you zoom out far enough, the planets blur into dots, and Earth becomes just another speck. But it's not. It's the only speck we've found with life. That's not comforting. That's isolating. It's not just about fearing what's out there. It's about realizing how little is out there for us. Some of the planets, stars, and galaxies we look at, they aren't even there anymore. What we're seeing is old light that's taken hundreds, thousands, even millions of years to reach us. We stare at these distant objects, wondering what they're like now. But now might not exist. They could have exploded, collapsed, drifted into darkness, and we'd have no idea. Because we're watching a broadcast that ended before humans even existed, it's like trying to know someone through a photograph, but the photo was taken before they died. That's the scale we're dealing with. The universe doesn't just dwarf us in size, it outpaces us in time, so much so that even when we look up, we're still looking back. There's something uniquely horrifying about the idea of floating freely in space. Not falling, not flying, just drifting. Forever. All it takes is a broken tether, a failed thruster, a wrong movement, and suddenly, you're no longer part of the mission. You're just an object moving at thousands of kilometers an hour away from everything. No gravity, no air, no sound, just you and the nothing around you. I used to get the exact same fever dream as a kid. I'd be on a spacewalk, calm at first, until I slipped. And suddenly, I was floating away, arms flailing, fighting with everything I had to go back. But nothing worked. No sound, no movement. Just this slow, crushing realization that I was slipping further into the void. Completely helpless, completely doomed. You wouldn't even hear yourself scream. And no one else would either. Because in space, sound doesn't travel. It's not like drowning. It's not like falling off a cliff. There's no splash, no crash, no ending you can brace for. Instead, it's the slow, creeping realization that you are permanently removed from everything you've ever known. The Earth gets smaller, your oxygen meter ticks lower, your thoughts get louder. And that's the thing. We're not astronauts. We're not drifting through space. We're safe here on Earth, grounded, anchored, protected. But the fear doesn't care. It's strong enough to follow you into your dreams, to make your heart race at the thought of floating away. That helpless, silent drift. It's not real, but it feels real. And sometimes, that's enough. There's a specific kind of fear that comes from seeing a person in a spacesuit. Not panic, not horror, something colder, uncanny. They're meant to be symbols of human achievement, a way to survive where no life should. But when you really look at one, they don't feel human at all. Big, rigid frames, a mirrored visor with no face behind it, movements that don't quite feel natural, like something pretending to be alive. It reminds me of that scene in Interstellar where they land on the water planet. For a moment, everything seems quiet, just standing there on the surface looking around. Then that wave starts rising in the distance, and suddenly the suit isn't protection, it's a prison. They're too slow, too heavy, too far from safety. You can see how helpless it all is. That's what makes spacesuits so eerie. They strip away expression, identity, warmth. They turn people into drifting shapes. And if one of them was floating toward you in space, how would you even know if someone was still inside? Maybe it's just a reflection. Maybe it's just debris. Or maybe it's someone long gone, still drifting, still waiting. In a suit built to protect them, long after protection stopped mattering. You ever look at Earth from space and realize how thin our safety net actually is? One sliver of atmosphere. Paper-thin blue glow. That's it. That's what stands between us and the endless nothing. It's like living in a snow globe, floating inside a glass bubble, in the middle of an infinite drop. And every time I remember that, I feel it in my chest. This creeping tension, like something's pressing down on me from all sides, like I shouldn't be here, like we got lucky and one day the universe might notice. You don't have to be an astronaut to feel that. Sometimes you're just lying in bed, scrolling past a photo of Earth taken from the moon, and suddenly your whole body tightens. Because even though you're grounded and safe, there's this quiet panic that bubbles up, as if your mind can't comprehend the scale of what's beyond that blue edge. And in that moment, space stops being beautiful. It becomes something else entirely. Too big to understand, too empty to survive, and far too close for comfort. Most of us will never go to space. So the way we understand it, the way we feel about it, often comes from movies, games, and TV. Media doesn't just show us space as it is. It shapes space into something more dramatic, more personal, and sometimes more terrifying. This chapter looks at how different forms of media portray space, and how those portrayals feed into our fears. Because even if we know it's fiction, sometimes it sticks with us like it's real. Some movies don't just stick with you, they linger, especially when space already lives in your nightmares. Take Gravity, the scene where Sandra Bullock gets flung into open space, spinning uncontrollably. There's no sound, no music, just her breath, getting faster. You can't see Earth, you can't see help, she's just drifting. That scene lives rent-free in my head. Because that's what astrophobia feels like. Powerless, untethered, and completely at the mercy of the void. Then there's Interstellar. That moment on the water planet, where every hour equals 7 years. They lose decades in the time it takes to fix a sensor. It's not just the fear of time slipping away. It's the reminder that space doesn't care about our rules, about our lives. You could die of old age while your daughter is still waiting for you to come home. Even something like 2001: A Space Odyssey. There's a scene where one of the astronauts is severed from the ship. No screaming, no rescue, just the visual of him spinning away forever into darkness. That image is pure existential horror. It doesn't need a monster. Space is the monster. These moments don't rely on jump scares. They tap into something deeper, that quiet, creeping dread that comes from realizing how small, how fragile, and how utterly alone we really are. Some games portray space as beautiful. Others portray it as lonely. Open sandbox titles like No Man's Sky, Outer Wilds, or Elite Dangerous give you entire galaxies to explore. Thousands of planets, space stations, star systems. They let you drift in silence, orbit gas giants, and touch down on isolated moons. And in those moments, you get a glimpse of something vast and quiet. But even then, it's still just a glimpse. No loading screen or procedurally generated terrain can truly capture what space is. The silence in these games is only skin deep. There's still music, objectives, visual cues reminding you where to go next. There's always something to do, something to find. In real space, there's no soundtrack, no quest marker, just distance, stretching on forever. And that's what makes the real thing so much harder to wrap your head around. The games simulate loneliness, but they don't simulate meaninglessness. They let you feel alone, but never insignificant. Because no matter how empty the screen looks, you're still the center of it. There's a reason the game Alien Isolation is so unsettling, and it's not just the creature. You're alone on a massive, half-abandoned space station. No help is coming. The lights flicker, doors hiss open to empty corridors, and somewhere in the shadows, something is stalking you. But here's what makes it brilliant. It's not just about the alien, it's about the space around you. You can't just run outside for help. You're surrounded by a vacuum. Every sound you make could be your last. The walls feel like they're closing in, but beyond them is infinite, airless nothing. That contrast, claustrophobia inside and infinite emptiness outside, feeds into a deeper anxiety. It's not just the fear of being hunted, it's the fear of knowing that even if you escape, there's nowhere safe to run to. Space becomes the true antagonist. The alien is just a reminder that you were never meant to be here in the first place. We've already touched on Interstellar and Gravity, but the reason they stick isn't just because of the visuals. It's because they don't have to exaggerate. They show space as it really is. A place where the tiniest mistake can be the end of everything. Not out of malice, just indifference. You're not battling a monster. You're battling silence, the lack of air, the math of orbital decay, and the clock ticking down in the background, completely out of your control. Then there's The Martian. Less horror, more survival, but still terrifying in its own way. One man, completely alone, on a planet that was never meant to support him. He jokes, he works, he fights to stay alive, but every second there's this quiet tension underneath. If the systems fail, if the calculations are off by even a little, he's gone. No drama, no rescue. That's the power of these stories. They don't show space as an enemy. They show it as a place where you were never meant to be. It's easy to brush off fear of space as irrational. After all, most of us will never leave Earth. We'll never float in zero gravity or stare down the void. But that doesn't matter, because it's not really about space itself. It's about what it represents. Isolation, insignificance. The idea that you could be screaming into the dark and nothing, absolutely nothing, will answer back. That's what these films, games, and stories capture so well. They don't just put you in space, they put you in your own head. They take real science, real conditions, and amplify the dread we already carry inside. The kind that doesn't need aliens or evil robots, just a blank sky and a silence that stretches forever. That's why it sticks with us. Because deep down we know the scariest thing out there might be nothing at all. So far we've talked about the emotional weight of space, the fear, the isolation, the scale. But there's another layer to this phobia that's much more grounded, the science. In this chapter, we're looking at the physical realities that make space so dangerous. No atmosphere, no pressure, intense radiation, extreme temperatures. Things that don't just sound scary, they actually are. These aren't movie scenarios. They're real conditions that make space one of the most unforgiving environments imaginable. Space doesn't have to throw an asteroid at you or suck you into a black hole to kill you. It just has to exist. The vacuum of space is pure nothingness. No air, no pressure, no protection. And if you're exposed to it, your body notices. Fast. You won't explode, like in the movies, but within 15 seconds, you'll lose consciousness as the lack of oxygen hits your brain. Your saliva starts to boil, not from heat, but from the absence of pressure. Your skin swells. Your blood vessels don't burst, but you puff up like a balloon. And even if you're brought back in time, the damage might be permanent. There's no buffer zone, no easing into it. You're either protected or you're not. And if you're not, space will make quick work of you. On Earth, we're protected by a thick atmosphere and a magnetic field that shields us from most cosmic radiation. In space, you have none of that. Radiation is everywhere. Solar flares, galactic cosmic rays, high-energy particles from deep space. And unlike Earth's natural defenses, a thin metal spacecraft or suit can't stop all of it. Over time, that exposure adds up. DNA gets damaged, cells mutate. Astronauts on long missions face higher risks of cancer, cataracts, and neurological issues. It's not just about survival in space. It's about what space does to your body after you come home. Even a strong solar storm could be lethal if it hits while you're unprotected. A few minutes of exposure could overwhelm your body's ability to recover. Radiation in space isn't a dramatic explosion or fiery death. It's slower, quieter. And in some ways, that's worse. If you ever found yourself exposed in space, you'd think freezing to death would be the biggest danger. But that's only half the story. In space, there's no atmosphere to regulate temperature. That means you're at the mercy of whatever's around you, or not around you. Stand in direct sunlight and you could heat up to 120 degrees Celsius. Step into the shade and you'd plummet to negative 150 degrees Celsius. And there's no in-between. No wind, no breeze, just radiation. It's like standing between a blast furnace and a deep freezer, with nothing to shield you but a few layers of fabric and tech. Your suit isn't just insulation, it's life support. And if it fails, you're either boiling or freezing, depending on which direction you're facing. In space, your senses lie to you. There's no up, no down, no floor beneath your feet, no horizon to lock onto. Just endless black in every direction in your brain, begging for a frame of reference that doesn't exist. Even trained astronauts struggle with it. Your body might be perfectly still, but without gravity or landmarks, it feels like you're spinning. You can't tell which way you're facing. Can't tell if you're moving or drifting. Your inner ear freaks out. Your vision starts to play tricks on you. It's not like being lost. It's like being nowhere. You start to feel unmoored, like your mind is floating too, like the moment you let go of something solid underwater. Except there's no surface to swim toward, no bubbles to follow, just empty space in every direction. And the sinking feeling that you might never find your way back. Astrophobia isn't just fear of space. It's fear of the idea of space. Of being small, powerless, insignificant compared to its sheer size. And honestly, I get it. We've spent this whole video walking through just how overwhelming it all is. The silence, the scale, the existential gut punch of realizing that most of the universe doesn't even know we exist, and never will. But maybe that's the point. Maybe, instead of turning away, we should lean in. Not because space is comforting, but because it's fascinating. Because it makes you feel something. And any feeling that strong, that visceral, is worth exploring. If you've ever looked up at the stars and felt your stomach drop, you're not broken. You're human. And maybe, just maybe, the best way to deal with that fear is to keep looking up anyway. Even if your brain's screaming, don't. Even if you're absolutely not built for the void. Because the truth is, space is terrifying, but it's also one of the most incredible things we've ever tried to understand. And hey, if it all gets a bit too much, just remember, we're still here. firmly on Earth. Gravity works, and there's no chance of you accidentally drifting into the abyss. Unless you're in a space movie, then best of luck.